Hello friends! In continuation of the instructional videos about this LS brand inverter, today we want to talk about one of the great features of this LS inverter. The feature we want to discuss today, these are settings that we can apply to the digital inputs of this LS inverter and use them according to our application. This feature is called multifunction input terminal control in the S100 inverter. What does this feature mean? It refers to the settings we can configure for the digital inputs on the S100 inverter. First, we can set a delay for the activation of the digital input, meaning we can define a delay for the digital input to turn on. We can set a delay for the activation of that digital input in the S100 inverter. To set a delay for a digital input when it is activated or turned on in the S100 inverter, we need to configure it. We need to go into the input parameter group, or IN, and in parameter IN80. 5, we set the time value, which is the duration of our delay. The delay setting range for turning on the digital input in the S100 inverter is from 0 up to 10,000 milliseconds. But if we want, when the digital input is turned off, or when the digital input is deactivated, to also define a period of time as a delay. In the inverter, you need to go to parameter 86 in the same N input group. So if we want to set a delay for turning on the digital input, we use parameter IN85. And if we want to set a delay for deactivating or turning off the digital input, you need to enter parameter 86 from the input parameter group, or the same IN group. But another setting we can do for digital inputs on the 100 inverter is that we can define which digital input, ranging from P1 to P5 in standard models and from P1 to P7. In the multiple models, you can set whether that digital input should be normally closed or normally open, meaning whether the contact for that digital input is open or closed by default. To enable this feature on our digital inputs, we need to configure it. So if we want our digital input to be normally open or normally closed, we need to go into the same group and enter parameter 87. Therefore, for setting the delay and activating the digital input, parameter 87 is used. Parameter 86 is for setting the delay when turning off or deactivating the digital input. If we want to change the mode of that digital input, meaning from normally closed to normally open, or from normally open to normally closed, we need to enter parameter 87. But if we want to see what state our digital input is currently in, right now the digital input, whether it's in the off state or the on state, we need to go into parameter I90. And in I90, we can check the status of the relevant digital input from P1 to P5 to see if it's on or off. But for parameters I87 and I90, how should we specify that our digital input gets activated? And how can we make it switch from normally closed to normally open? Or in I90, check whether our digital input is in the logical 1 state or not. In order to successfully change a digital input setting from a normally open state to a normally closed configuration, you must first access the system parameters. In I87, if the bit related to that digital input is high, meaning it's deactivated, then the contact of that digital input is in the normally open state. And if its bit is high, meaning it's active, then the contact is normally closed. For example, here P1, this bit, P2, P3, P4, and P5 from right to left correspond to digital inputs P1 to P5, respectively. Now, since the bits related to all the digital inputs are low or their bits are off, all our digital inputs are in the normally open state, and it's the same for the status of the digital inputs. If the bit related to that digital input is low or off, That digital input is at logical 0, meaning it's inactive. And if this bit is high or on, that digital input is at logical 1, or it's on. All right, so that covers the settings related to the digital inputs of the inverter, which we can adjust on the inverter. We can configure them and when turning on or off, make the necessary adjustments or set the state of the digital inputs. We can change it from normally open to normally closed mode. Let's go to this inverter. Let's set up the features we learned together and test this capability together. All right, as we said, if we want to set up on delay and off delay for the digital inputs on this inverter, we need to enter the parameter group for this. In parameter 85, we have to set the delay for the digital input to turn on. Set the time, and in parameter 826, we can apply the delay for turning off. All right, now I've entered parameter 825 and I'm setting its value. 3,000 milliseconds or 3 seconds means that if I activate the digital input, which I've connected here, it will activate after 3 seconds and this will stall the inverter. I confirm it. For parameter 826, when the digital input is turned off or deactivated, I've set the time. 3,000 milliseconds or 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, my digital input gets activated and my inverter stops. All right, that covers the delay time settings. Now I'm going to activate my digital input. You can see that 3 seconds after I activated the digital input, my inverter started. Now I'm going to deactivate the digital input. 3 seconds after the digital input, it gets deactivated and my inverter stops.